This is Lightning Power Lunch, presented by Reef Rum on the Lightning Audio Network with Dave Mishkin and Greg Linnelli.
Well, pretty gutty effort. It's tough playing these back-to-backs and, a late travel get in and all this stuff. And, kind of an emotional game for us, losing one of our guys. But we defended well. And we took a little bit of a risk out of our game. Pitt's a good team. So you just you go down the star power that team has. And when we did break down, which we did, a couple times, Fassi was there to make the big save for us. So it was, just all the guys are pulling in the same direction. And I'd said this before, we'd lost a few before we went on this streak, but I thought we were playing pretty well. It's hard to say that when you're not getting the results, but guys are getting rewarded right now, and it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, it is. 11-0. Last 11 games, a shootout win last night against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Back-to-back wins on that mini Pennsylvania trip where Lightning took care of business a couple times against the Flyers and then did what they had to do against the Pittsburgh Penguins. Always fun when those two teams get matched up. Erik Erlendsson is with us again in for Mish, who did the game call last night, which was great, along with Phil Esposito. Chief was back with us as well, which was nice. The band was back together, and we'll do it again coming up here on Friday. But I think anytime you start getting above 7-8 game win streaks in any sport, it catches your attention. I think one where there is a lot of parity. Certainly this catches my attention probably even more. And it's hard to do. And the Lightning have needed every single one of these wins, by the way, to get to first place, which probably speaks to, again, why this win streak is so impressive because of how tight everything is. But they found another way to win, this time in the shootout. I thought Vasilevsky was really good. He made a number of saves, particularly in OT, and sometimes that's when you need your goaltender to be your best player because of all of the open ice. But, what more can you say about this Lightning team? It seems like every game they're doing something a little differently to get the win, although collectively they are D'ing up, and that is giving them a chance to win these games, isn't it?
Yeah, it's at the core of the success is their defensive play, right?
Yep.
That's where everything is built out of. It's the foundation of what they want to do, and you look at a game like last night and you see why, because the offensive juice just wasn't quite there as we're used to seeing, right? Because in the previous 10 games of this streak, they'd scored at least 4 goals in every single one of them. So on a night where you're hitting the crossbar a couple of times, pucks are sailing high, Pittsburgh was getting their sticks on some shots and deflecting them out of play and away from the net, so it wasn't quite there. And on nights like that, if you're not having it offensively, you can always lean into your defensive play, and then you can take advantage of an opportunity, as J.J. Moser did, to put you on the board. And, you could have had that game in regulation. It didn't happen, but you still got the 2 points. But it all happened because you defended pretty well. And some of the irony there of that game is I think they were actually credited with 18 giveaways in that game. And I think Pittsburgh had 9 takeaways, so added up 27 turnovers, which is a lot in a game. But they weren't some of those mistakes in the bad areas of the ice, right? Like, I know Chief talks about all the time. We mentioned it at 3 feet inside and outside the blue line at both ends of the ice. There weren't a ton of those. There were some. There were a couple of, it's one thing having Chief back. You know how he feels about the game when those pucks go across the top of the zone. He immediately sees it and, points it out. And so there were a few of those, but there weren't a ton. So the turnovers and the giveaways weren't coming in bad areas of the ice. So the puck management wasn't as good as it has been, but it wasn't in bad areas of the ice to put them in too much jeopardy. And if it did happen, Andrei Vasilevsky came into the conversation, shut the door, and gave him a chance. So it's it wasn't the prettiest of wins for sure. Certainly not the prettiest win during this winning streak, but it is a win. It's 2 points. The streak lives on, and you're right, man. It's crazy. Look at like Toronto last night lost in Utah. I think they had a 10-game point streak going. I think they were 9-0-1 in their previous 10. Detroit's on a run, and they lost last night to Boston, so they lost to a division opponent. I mean, every single team in the East. I mean, Buffalo won 13 out of 14. Like, it's crazy what's going on in the Atlantic Division where every team is over 500.
Never seen anything like it. Maybe I have, but recently I can't recall this type of race being competitive, and it does have people looking at the standings all the time. Eventually we're going to get into this conversation about do the seedings matter this year? It seems like every year you have that conversation where do you want to be the number 1 overall seed? Do you want to be the wild card because maybe your wild card matches up better with one of the division leaders? I don't know. We always think like home ice advantage. Would you rather play Game 7 on home ice than not? But then again, when there's all this parity, does it matter? I don't know. I don't know what makes sense this year in terms of teams that have an advantage game in and game out. I do think the Lightning's combination of defending and elite talent is maybe starting to gain a little bit more separation because it's hard to do.
Yeah,
I think for an extended period of time, and it feels like they found it.
I think in this year in particular, you talk about seeding and everything else. I think what's going to matter most, just get in. Just make sure you're in the top 8, right? That's what you have to do because there might be 1, 2, potentially 3 teams in the East that will have more points than the 2 wildcard teams in the West. Like there will be 2 really good teams, 3, 4, depending on how the rest of the season goes, that will not even make the playoffs. So you just got to make sure you're in the top 8, and I think the Lightning kind of have found a rhythm, in what was, like John Cooper even said it last night, like it's that 1-4-2 start seems so long ago.
Yeah. Right?
Like it seemed like, did that really happen? And even the 2-5-1 stretch they had feels like it was a long time ago, because let's face it, they haven't lost since before Christmas. We're in the middle of January here, and they haven't lost a game since before Christmas. So they're just the belief and the buy-in. I know we talked about it a lot last night in the post game. Is kind of what's put this team where it's at in terms of how they know they have to play. And like you asked me the question yesterday on the show about potential similarities between some of the other teams that have had some success. And, I brought that up with Chief about that 04 team. And unprompted, he even said the same thing, that John Tortorella at that time, that team got to a point where he didn't have to talk to him before a game, right? That's where I just had to open the door and let him play comment kind of came from Torts. And, you kind of get that same sort of vibe right now with this team, that no matter who's in the lineup, because we know the injuries have been there, and no matter who plays with whom, no matter who's paired with whom, no matter who's in goal, they have one focus, and that's to play the game the right way to give themselves chances to win. And that's kind of how last night's game played out.
JJ Moser with it wasn't a fluky goal. You played to the whistle, right? And he did. And Johnny on the spot. Big goal, at the time. And, do you feel for the goaltender a little bit? I was trying to pick Chief's brain on moments like that. But, J.J. Moser, to his credit, going to the net and trying to make something happen, which he did. Of course, Pittsburgh was able to get a late goal from Malkin. But Moser's storied season continues. And, this is somebody... And I ask this understanding he's not going to win. Does he get votes for the Norse?
No.
You don't think he gets 1 vote? With that, like that plus minus gets beyond 40. I mean, you got to look at that, right, and say, look, they didn't have Hedman. They didn't have McDonough.
Yeah.
Moser, I think everybody in the hockey circles probably knew how good he was. I think people maybe on the outside didn't. Last year was up and down for various reasons, but I mean, what more could you want? J.J. Moser's playing like a number 1 or a number 2 on most teams.
Oh, he's the number one right now for sure. It's
For
like
the Lightning, absolutely.
Absolutely. And his level of play is there, But just given the nature of how that award is voted on, he
Yeah.
won't get any votes. I mean, if Ryan McDonough can't do it, and you think of some of the defensive
Well, he didn't
years
win it.
that
Did
Ryan
McDonough get some? Did he get some votes?
If he got votes, like I know one year when I was voting, I did give McDonough a vote, and it was probably
Ninth place.
the year. Well, it's top five. We vote top five.
That's right. That's right.
It might have been the same year that we had him in the Conn Smythe voting, right? Like,
Gotcha.
I think that was, what was that, the 21 season?
Yeah, I think you're right.
It was. And because those of us in the Tampa market who watched every single playoff game knew the importance of Ryan McDonough in the run to that 20, I think it was the 21 Cup. I think he actually finished third in the voting behind Cooch and Vazzy that year. So you can see, but like guys like Moser, guys like McDonough, they're not going to jump off the page to voters. And yeah, the plus minus is a stat, and certainly he's at the top, or near the top. I don't know exactly where he's at yet compared to the Colorado guys, but
Yeah.
he's had that type of year, but he doesn't put up the offensive numbers, and unfortunately, that award has turned into as much, if not more, of an offensive category than it has overall defensively. Because if that was the case, a guy like Jacob Slavin would be in the conversation every single year, and he's not, and he deserves to be.
Listen, you're right. That's why it's backwards. That's why we need to reverse.
You need a Bobby Orr. You need a Bobby Orr trophy,
Yeah.
and then you need the Norris Trophy. But
I like it. Why not? You do it. I mean, I've always said this. You do it for an offensive player, right? You do it basically for the MVP, but then you also credit the Selke, right?
Yeah.
The guys who defend. Why wouldn't you do that for the back end? That's their job.
yeah. I don't disagree.
They're liable to give the best fighting award before they do that,
It's possible.
which I'm surprised that's not happening yet.
But it's also a byproduct of just the way the voting has morphed
Yeah,
through the
for
years,
sure.
right? It's the Coach of the Year award. The Coach of the Year award does not necessarily go to the guy who's done the best coaching job. It's going to the guy who's gotten his team that was not expected to perform, right? So that's what the Jack Adams has kind of turned into, and I think it's the same way with the Norris. I mean, there were years, and look, I've been voting off and on for the past 25 years, so I've seen the morphing kind of take place, is that it wasn't always just about the offensive numbers, right? I think the year Erik Erlendsson won it, not the year he had 100 points, but the previous time he won it, like he didn't kill penalties, but his offensive numbers were so high and above everybody else's, that's what stood out to voters. So it has morphed from guys who maybe were more two-way and contributed at both ends of the ice to who's the best offensive guy, right? Because the argument for Karlsson all those years, well, he's the best defenseman because nobody get the puck away from him, and he controls the game, which there's some truth to that. But he didn't kill penalties. He wasn't a good defensive defenseman. He was just good because nobody could get the puck on him, and he put up great offensive numbers, and that's how he stood out. So to get a long answer to your question, no, I don't think J.J. Moser is going to get any Norris votes. And if it does, it's going to come from the local chapter.
That is for sure. I thought the Lightning did a pretty good job last night of containing Sidney Crosby as much as you can. Not that he didn't have looks, not that he didn't have moments. The pass he made to Rust in the overtime was a thing of beauty. But I thought the ability, for the most part, to limit him, considering the season he's had, and he did have Brian Rust with him last night, no Erik Karlsson, I thought was another good indication this team continues to trend in a very positive direction collectively, defensively.
Well, and just go back to last week when they contained Nathan McKinnon, which not many teams have been able to do this year, right? They did a pretty good job of bottling him up, and I think McKinnon had one opportunity in that game against Colorado where he almost split the D. It's again, it just goes back to the commitment that this team has put forth this year to pride themselves in anchoring their defensive game. Take care of that first, the opportunities to score will come, and your challenge when you face guys like Crosby, like McKinnon, like McDavid. I mean, even go back to that Edmonton game. I mean, McDavid didn't have a McDavid kind of game, right? It was finished 2-1 in overtime as it was, but he didn't get loose a lot, and that's not easy to do. Now they still have one more game against the Oilers this year, and McDavid's on a 20-game scoring streak right now.
Right.
But that's just that commitment, and it's been the Girgensons, Gord, and Holmberg line that has gotten a lot of those assignments of late. Certainly John Cooper tried to get those guys out there against Crosby's line as much as possible last night as well. And again, we talk about the success, especially on the road. Like, last night was their 17th road win. They had 18 road wins all of last year. So we've talked about their success on the road this year. I think a lot of it has come because they want that matchup with the Gord line against whoever, but if they don't get it, they're still comfortable with it because of the trust they have in their guys. So, but it's not easy to have to do that every night. It takes a lot of commitment. It's hard work. It takes a lot of focus, especially when you're facing a guy like Crosby who's can make plays. Like, we get spoiled by watching Kucherov. Well, Sidney Crosby can make some of those plays too, just in a different manner. And it's not easy to do that when you're facing those top guys. I think that the Lightning have done a great job no matter who their opponent has been this year.
It's been incredible. At Bolts Radio, if you want to get involved in the conversation, you certainly can. Okay, dude, 1234 says Norris, unfortunately, is a points competition. The analytics-driven media have been gassing up Moser, though. Well, I don't pay attention to that. Can you do that more than I do? Are they gassing it up?
Well, I don't speak young people language anymore these days, but
are you saying we're very uncool?
I am very uncool, trust me. I know. My kids remind me all the time.
Yeah, I'm there with you.
Yeah, wait till they get older.
Yeah, I got 2 girls.
Yeah, it'd be even worse.
That's right.
Yeah, like you look at some of the because there's a lot of them out there now that have the advanced metrics and how they measure and I don't know the ins and outs of how it works. I know how to read some of the graphs and everything else that are out there. And yeah, Moser has been one of the best. Like, the one that I see a lot, they judge a number from 0 to 100 on offense and a number on 0 to 100 on defense. And Moser's number on defense has been 96, 97, sometimes 98 on the year. And it changes from game to game in whatever they put, the numbers in, the aggregate and the data that they use. But yeah, he's been talked up in some of those circles for the way that he has played this year, for sure. I just don't know if that's going to resonate with voters.
That would be interesting, some of those metrics. How many offensive defensemen are scoring high defensively? Mm-hmm. Like the Makars. Yeah. Are they in the 90s as well defensively, or is it mainly they're scoring super high offensively, and of course defensively maybe they're in the 60s or 70s? If you want to look at those metrics, because I'm curious. You could look at what Moser's doing, and playing defense at a high level, I think, in today's NHL might be a little harder because of the talents. And so to me, I would look at that and say that's actually more impressive.
Well, and what's one of the things that, like Makar in particular, there's not a lot of holes in his game, but one of the holes in his game is he's not very defensive aware in his own end. Right? Like, he's just not very good in his own end. Like, you watch the way that he kind of sees the puck and he's kind of late on plays, and so he's not a defensive liability. Don't get me wrong in any sense of the wrong. But if you're going to poke holes in a game like Makar, it is his play in his own end, right? He's not the best when it comes to that. Erik Karlsson wasn't the best either, even during his prime when he was putting up 100-point seasons, for the Sharks. So yeah, there are ways to metric those, data those, whatever made-up adjective I can kind of throw in there to determine all of that. And I would bet that a guy like Makar, his offensive numbers are going to be off the chart. His defensive numbers probably are not going to be quite as good, because he's just not a strength of what his game is, because he's more of a puck mover, a guy that can get the puck out of trouble and shoot the puck and be involved in the offensive zone. And that's where he's going to get credit for the player that he is.
Makes a lot of sense. I get it. I want to get to some questions here. FKA322, glad they edged that one out. For a large part of that game, I thought the streak would be over. How do you see the team adapting without Point if he ends up spending a large amount of time on IR? And we should mention that was maybe the biggest news we took from the game last night, is that John Cooper felt like maybe that was the best news they could have received, that it looks like Point's going to be back, and that probably more week to week. Is that kind of how you interpreted everything? Don't know about the Olympics. I mean, I know people are going to ask that question, but I think for the time being, positive news.
Best case scenario under the circumstances. It's not good. You're going to be missing him for at least a couple to few weeks at a minimum. But the way it looked, the way we feared, what it could have been, this is best case, right? It's just best case.
Yeah.
And trying to read between coach speak. John Cooper said within a few weeks, hopefully he'll be okay. So that kind of gives you a little bit of an indication of what the time frame could be. Nothing is definitive and nothing is set. Certainly when he does come back, he'll probably be have a brace on the knee. We talked yesterday that Ed Encina spotted him walking around post game the other night with a brace on, so that'll probably be there. So the good news is it's not season ending. I mean, John Cooper squashed that right away. It doesn't sound like it's super long term, right? All depending on his recovery. So hopefully, maybe by the 1st of February in the outdoor game, maybe it's right on that cusp of the 3 weeks. That John Cooper alluded to. How do they adapt? They've got plenty of experience this year adapting to guys not being in the lineup, including Braden Point, who missed about 6 or 7 games, right, where he wasn't available and he was on IR then. We saw it last night. Nick Paul moved up into a top 6 role. I think as that game went on, I think you saw Dominic James get a few more shifts in the top 6 as they try and integrate him. And he made a couple of great defensive plays last night. You saw his speed really stand out in a couple of teams. He won, that late faceoff right before Pittsburgh scored. He won that faceoff. They couldn't get the puck out of the zone, but he did win that against Sidney Crosby. So they're kind of spoon feeding him a little bit in trying to get him into that. So there are different ways that this team can adapt. And that's not even talking about guys that they might have down at Syracuse if they want to go that route, right? We talked about it yesterday. A guy like Jacob Peltier, he's having a great offensive year for Syracuse, is among the leaders in the American Hockey League. Connor Geekie is a potential. He's been playing center, for the Crunch a good portion of the season since he went down. So they will adapt. They know how to adapt. You don't replace Braden Point. You just kind of fill the roles that he plays.
Does Point have to be at 100% to play in the Olympics? In other words, if he's got a brace on, does that make you? That would be a tough one. I mean, and Julian can say, "Hey, Coop can answer that," but no, I'm going to kick it to Julian. No, you got to answer this one, and whoever else is part of the brass there. Does that make it an easier decision? If you're not 100%, you can't play.
It's a $9.5 million cap hit question.
That is.
That is. And it's difficult, right? Because if he, so let's take the John Cooper a few weeks comment and kind of run with that. Mm-hmm. Canada does not play their first game, I think, until February 13th. You play 3 round-robin games to determine seeding. And then you get into the play-in round and then the quarterfinals. And as you go into the point where the gold medal game would be February 22nd. So if that 3 weeks turns into, well, he'll be ready in 4 weeks, do you still take him, even if he misses the first couple of games? I think yes, because it's easy for us to be on the outside and say, well, Braden Point shouldn't go to the Olympics. His priority is here. And that is true. This is his job. He gets paid to play for the Tampa Bay Lightning. But it's easy for us to say, no, he shouldn't go when the opportunities for these players to compete in the Olympics doesn't come around very often.
Yeah.
Even for other athletes. But the NHL in particular, again, this is the first time since 2014 that the NHL is competing in the Olympics. So you've missed out on two Olympic cycles. And, Braden Point is 30 years old now. Could he be somebody that they look at in 4 years? Maybe. But there's a lot of star power coming. Celebrini's on the team this year. Connor Bedard. Whoever's going to be drafted in the next 1 or 2 years. Gavin McKenna. Who's projected to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft this year. He will be coming along. So there'll be younger talent that comes along in the next 4 years. So it's easy for us to say, no, he should not go no matter what. Where if he's healthy to play, he'll be healthy to play, I think he'll go. And the other part of that is, too, knowing the medical staff here, they always err on the side of caution anyway, right? So if there's any potential that he could injure himself more or it won't heal if he plays, he won't go, right? That's what it'll come down to. And the other part of all of this is the conditions over there, right?
Yeah.
The rink is still not finished.
Well, that's the other thing. Do we hesitate even more because makes what's
you think.
going on over there in Italy? I mean, we're eating our pasta, and I get it. Look, I'm Italian. Like, what's going on? But is that ice going to be ready?
That is the biggest concern. We can talk about finishing the locker rooms. You have to have. I don't know if the NHL is going to get involved in trying to send over some.
Involved.
I mean, if they can build ice out here in Tampa, I think that they could help build some ice indoors in Italy, right?
Is it too late? I guess. I mean, we're weeks away.
I don't think it's too late.
You don't think it's too late? All right.
Not for the ice. The cosmetic stuff.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if all of that's going to be done. It's hard to think that they could get the cosmetic stuff done. The locker rooms weren't even finished.
Handheld signs. Hey, come to Vinny.
Yeah.
What are we doing?
But here's the biggest concern with the ice. And, we saw, I'm sure a lot of people saw some of the videos of the practice events that took place in the building over this weekend. And they had a couple of delays to repair the ice. And that's going to happen. That's why you have these events. But the biggest concern with the ice is it's going to get used a lot. The women's tournament and then the men's tournament. So the women's tournament will be played on it before the men's tournament is played on it. And the other part, like the practice rink, there's only one practice rink as far as I know, and that ice is not usable yet. And that's the teams are going to use it for morning skates, and they're going to use it for practices and off days. Like, all of them are going to be using it. There's 12 men's teams, and I think there's 12 women's teams. There might be 10, or I don't know what the exact number is for the women's tournament, but all of these teams are going to be using the same ice. And that to me is the biggest concern. How can that high ice hold up with all the use that it's going to get if they don't have it perfected by I think the women's tournament starts the 4th or the 6th, somewhere in that range. So they're going to start, a week and a half prior to the men's tournament. So that would be the thing that makes me pause, especially with what we assume is a knee injury. And if you find a rut in the ice, if you find a soft spot in the ice, could it tweak it? So those things will all be put under consideration before determining whether or not Braden Point, in this particular case, would be available for Team Canada.
Just makes it so intriguing, doesn't it? I mean, all of this,
Yeah, it's interesting.
What can you say?
Like, they award these 6 years out, right? Now, I know COVID still exists in terms of those type of timelines, so it kind of set them back a little bit, but it's not like this data is sneaking up on them, right? They've known when this tournament is going to start, and the fact
that's
that
what I mean. What are we doing? What are we doing here?
Yeah.
So I mean, look, I'll go to Italy. I'll go to Italy for a couple weeks, and we'll figure out what's happening. Maybe we'll do the show from there, assuming the internet works, and all that fun stuff.
Well, get out your work boots and a hard hat and go help with the construction crew.
I'll take Enzo with me. Yeah. Hey, Enzo, go out there and just start hammering away.
There you go. I mean, you know what? They need to take lessons from Disney.
Yeah.
Like, you ever seen how fast Disney puts some construction up?
That's true.
Right? They're working around the clock, right? Like, but hey, It's one way or the other. That's going to be a storyline once the
It
teams
will.
get over to Italy.
We'll be talking about it. There's no doubt.
Yep.
Ranger 5253 says, not to beat a dead horse here, but Hagel gets targeted again. No game misconduct. They screw up the clock on the power play, and no DPS hearing for a play that could have caused the concussion again. So a lot to unravel there. Once again, though, so forget about the targeting. Brandon Hagel, we can get into that for sure. It's another hit where you can see the numbers.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like that is the biggest player safety issue, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm.
I do. I mean, talk about fighting. You can talk about hits to the head. Fine. I think all warranted to have a conversation about where that is in today's NHL. I see more hits behind to players who are defenseless than I can remember.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a good answer for you other than, is it just a total lack of respect for your opponent at this point? Because it happens over and over again. And I've heard some theories they need to go back to, what are they doing, juniors?
Yep.
Or even
Stop
younger
sign.
than that. I mean, like, that's not going to happen. I know Chief and Phil, they've talked about the game just moves extremely fast. Is that part of it? Like, do I think Clifton was intentionally targeting Hagel because he's had concussion issues? I can't read his mind.
Yep.
My sense is no, he's a physical player. But I do question why I see more times than not players take runs at other players when all you can see is the back. And so I think that's a problem. Now, whether we think they're targeting Hagel, you're kind of going down a slippery slope a little bit because you're trying to get into somebody's head, and that's hard to do. People have tried to do it, and to no avail. But I think when you're playing the Panthers, and I think when you're playing maybe teams like that there's a history with Tampa Bay, and they do something to Hagel, I think it's fair to point it out. What do you make of the whole Hagel again targeted? And we did see Cirelli go to defend his buddy, which admirable. Love to see it. Mm-hmm. By the way, that's when I think fighting is good. Yeah. I don't like the stage fight. I think can we all agree? Let's get that out of the game. I don't think it serves a purpose. But I'm curious what you make of that, E.
I don't think Hagel was targeted last night. I don't think Clifton looked at the number on the back and said, "Oh, I got to hit this guy and I got to ram his head in the glass." It is a fast game. I do think he had enough time to not deliver that hit, and I think that's why they called that a major right after review. Because, like we were talking in the studio, I didn't think that it actually rose to the level of a major at first look. But I understand why after review they did, because time and distance. And this was not a situation where Hagel turned his back at the last minute, which you see sometimes. What was that hit that Cirelli took earlier this year as he turned into a hit? Right? He turned his back to a hit. I think there was actually another one where at the last minute, I don't know if it was James or somebody else, turned their back at the last minute. So they determined that the player with the puck in this case put themselves in a vulnerable position. Brandon Hagel was in a vulnerable position. And we had the question last night. He puts himself into that situation a lot. I don't necessarily agree with that, especially in that situation last night. I think there was plenty of time for Connor Clifton to not deliver that hit. So that to me, that's not a targeting a specific player. And to why do we see this happen? Brought it up yesterday. There's no deterrent. If player safety is not going to get involved,
it's fair.
What's the deterrent? Okay, he got a 5-minute major, fine. But it was canceled out because they gave Anthony Cirelli the instigator. By the way, I've seen a lot of questions. Why did Anthony Cirelli get a misconduct? It's automatic. When you get an instigator call, it's an automatic 2-minute minor for the instigator, 5 minutes for fighting, 10-minute misconduct. So that's an automatic call once they determine an instigator, which you can argue that one too. Clifton actually dropped his gloves first. right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot going on there that I think the referees muffed up a little bit, including Erik Chernak sat in the box for 10 minutes, and that penalty never appeared on the sheet until well after the game was over.
Yeah.
So we thought that Chernak got a misconduct call, but we never saw it till after the game. So is that a target on Brandon Hagel? I don't think that was Connor Clifton targeting Brandon Hagel, but I think he saw numbers and chose to deliver the hit anyway, and that to me is the problem if player safety is not going to get involved in protecting the players in that situation, because I think some of it is a lack of respect. You know, because if that, let's face it too, if that was 87 on the back, Lightning aren't hitting him, right? They're not delivering that hit to Sidney Crosby. But everybody else, it seems that's on a different tier, they're open season, and I think that's a problem.
It is a problem. It's almost like the NHL doesn't want to pull away from the way things were done, but at the same time, they want to move into this new world where there is safety, where we're trying to protect players with equipment, although Phil will tell you the equipment is actually more dangerous.
Yep.
Particularly with the body
Elbow
checks.
pads.
I think almost you do have to clean it up, but I mean, do you just be honest and talk about what the game is? It's just a violent game. You know, football's trying to clean up the game, but some people would just say, you're wearing pads and a helmet for a reason. And the reason is to go out and tackle somebody and make sure you beat them up pretty good. And there are some things we can call within reason, but for the most part, we've probably erred too much with some of these things. I don't know what the answer is. What's happening, though, is not working, because I see way too many of those hits, players who aren't looking. Carl says Gonzo is 2 for 2, I think, on shootouts this year. Guy definitely has a special skill there. He is skilled. And he does have a track record, I think. And he does have track record, right, in Syracuse of being a phenomenal player in the shootouts.
Yeah, I think, remember a couple years ago when he first came up, and he was the first guy that John Cooper tapped on the shoulder to go over, and he didn't convert it. And I think I asked the question, the decision to put Gonsalves out there. He says, well, if you look at his record in Syracuse, he's been really good at it. Now, I think he was going through a little bit of a rust stretch at that time.
Yeah.
But he has it. He's such a skilled guy. I don't think Gage Gonsalves knows how skilled he is.
It's a fair point.
Right? I think he's still tapping into how good of a player he can be. And you look at, the 2 goals he scored in Philly on Saturday, especially the first one. We talked about it yesterday, the inside-out Marty St. Louis move, right? That's a skilled play. It's not a lot of players can do what Gage Gonsalves did on that play. So, yeah, in a shootout, he can certainly make a difference, but I think that's just part of his skill. And, listening to him talk about it last night after the game, he has a couple of moves, and that's what's the players in his situation who are good at shootouts. They try and maintain the same path to the net, and then they try and adapt, and they have different moves that they feel comfortable and confident with depending on how the goaltender reacts.
I would agree with that wholeheartedly. Andrew says, do you think with Point out for at least several weeks that Geekie should be recalled given his skill level? The progress he's made down there has been really good this year. From what Julian was saying and the numbers, what do you make of that?
Yep. It's an option. There's certainly going to be missing a top 6 guy for a handful of games at the minimum. Geekie would be in that consideration. Jacob Pelletier would be in that consideration because of the season he's having. Like, he's among the top scorers in the American Hockey League this year, Pelletier is. Had a couple of cups of coffee up here this year, 1-game stints, and back he goes. So I don't know if that's somebody they would look to. The biggest issue we talk about a lot is faceoffs.
Yeah.
Right? Not that Braden Point is their top faceoff guy, but he is one of the few right-hand shot centermen. Now, they do have Jack Finley, who was in the lineup last night, and he did take some faceoffs. They actually put Finley out at the end of a power play to take a draw. About 30 seconds left. He took a draw. He didn't get credited for the win, but the puck stayed in the zone. He was a net front presence. So it will be interesting. Look, Braden Point has not even yet been put on injured reserve. I expect that will happen here. He's probably getting some more follow-up appointments today with Lightning doctors. But Geeky's an option, right? He's a top 6 talent guy. He's putting up some points in Syracuse and playing some big minutes for them and developing his game. But I think for the short term, at least right now, they'll probably keep it internal with what they have here because they do have Finley that can draw into the lineup. And then if they want to call back Curtis Douglas, who's in Syracuse on a conditioning assignment. But Geeky's an option for sure.
Thomas says, why did Cirelli get the game misconduct?
Okay. It wasn't a game misconduct. Okay. It was a 10-minute misconduct. He wasn't able to get back into the game because that penalty came with 16:50 left.
Yes.
Right? And it's a 17-minute penalty, right? The 2, 5, and the 10. And then he's in the box for overtime to start the overtime because there's still 10 more seconds remaining on the penalty. There wasn't a whistle in overtime. He couldn't come out of the box. So it wasn't a game misconduct penalty. It was just a 10-minute misconduct penalty. It just happened at a point in the game where he couldn't get back into it. So that's the other thing, having to play basically the entire third period without Anthony Cirelli, couldn't close out the 6 out of 5 with Anthony Cirelli. The Penguins got the extra attacker goal, but so it wasn't a game misconduct. It was just a 10-minute misconduct, which again is automatic anytime the referees determine an instigator penalty is going to be called.
King James says, this Gord line reminds me of the old Gord line with Goodrow and Coleman. Their forecheck has been relentless.
Yep.
Thank you, LeBron.
We made that comparison a few times in talking about the importance of a third line and, the way that they can play in the offensive zone is their strength, right? All three of them are so good at protecting the puck. I don't know if they have the offensive ceiling that line had. I mean, back then, Yanni Gourde was a 20-goal scorer, right? Blake Coleman was a 20-goal scorer. So you had a couple of 20-goal scorers on the line. I don't know. I don't think Yanni Gourde is a 20-goal scorer at this point in his career, and Gergensons and Holmberg certainly are not 20-goal scorers themselves. But they do spend a lot of time in the offensive zone. And by doing that, they make whoever they're matched up against, usually the top line on the other team, work in their own end and wear them down on their own end and don't let them be dangerous in the other end of the ice. So that's the strength of those three, and it's been fun to watch those guys. Even last night, the cycle game was going and, the low to high, the pucks behind the net, everything else that they're able to do, with their cycle game. And, I mean, we have drawn that comparison a few times in the importance of having a third line that can play like that.
If they score a combined 30 goals, that line, that may be a win. I mean, Holmberg...
They're at 19 now.
Yeah. Holmberg, I mean, he's what, at 7?
Yep.
What's
7
Gord,
and
6?
Gord and Gergensons both have 6.
Okay. I mean, maybe 10's conservative, but, can you get between 30 and 38 goals from that line? I think that'd be a win. Because Holmberg, I mean, you thought Gergensons would revert back to the norm a bit. I think last year, unlucky to a degree. Not a 20-goal scorer, but he hit 15 way back early in his career. I mean, I think he can get 7 to 10. Holmberg was kind of, you just weren't sure what you could get. And he's starting to find the net a little bit more, so maybe there's more offense in his game. I think he's the one guy that has, if you want to call it, a little bit more in the tank offensively to get to another level.
I agree.
I think it's him. But they've been fantastic. You're not asking them to score a ton of goals either. Spectre says, Greg and Eric, what are your thoughts on Charlie Coyle going into the trade deadline? $5.25 million cap hit, right-handed middle six center, veteran playoff experience, and plays all situations.
Kudos to Spectre for getting my first name right, by the way. A lot of people don't spell it right, so thank you for getting that right.
That is true. That is true. Nobody gets my last name right, so we're in the same boat. I mean, your first name, my last name, don't matter.
Look at my last name, buddy. That gets butchered a lot, too.
Double E. That's what we call you, just double E.
That's right.
Come on. I had one guy in high school on my basketball. He called me Minnelli. Minnelli. Like, you put an M in there, and I'm like, all right, well.
Did he just have problems with L's?
He had some problems, with a lot of things, but...
Did he not like losing? He just didn't like L's? I don't know.
Maybe. I was just like, whatever. You just got to, you roll with it. That was pretty funny.
All right, so back to Coyle. He's on Minnesota now, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Is that where he is now?
I think he's on Minnesota.
Let's Google him.
Yeah. Look that up as I talk here. Right-hand shot centermen are options for this team, and Coyle's skill set fits what they might be looking for. I don't know that the cap hit does, right? Because as Julian told us last week when he spoke, all the injuries have eaten away at the cap space that they thought they had leading into the deadline. So the thing you always have to ask yourself when you're potentially wanting to bring in a guy with a 5.25 cap hit is who's leaving the roster, who's leaving the lineup on top of that, right? And, it might have to be a situation where the Lightning have to go dollar in, dollar out, right? Because of, they're closer to the cap than they thought they were going to be because of all the injuries to high cap hit guys.
Sure.
Hedman, McDonough, Point. These guys all make. Vasilevsky was on IR for a while. These guys are all making a lot of money and eating up the cap as you have to bring in guys to replace them on the roster. But Coyle would be an intriguing guy. He's moved around quite a bit. He's been a guy at the trade deadline a couple of times that has been sought after by
Columbus,
teams.
by the way.
Columbus. Okay.
Did you have that in your bingo card anyway?
I did not. I would not have thought he was in Columbus.
If you gave me 10, we'll call it 5 answers to choose from. I 5 guesses. I don't know if I would have picked Columbus.
No, I would. I
that
definitely
bad?
would not have.
Yeah.
Well, again, he's moved around a lot, right? Because again,
He has.
right-hand shot centermen are commodities in the NHL. So, Columbus just made a coaching change. It's nice to see Rick Bowness back in the league. It'll be interesting to see what he can do with that team that has a lot of talented players. You think of the first-round picks they've had through the years and everything else, if he can kind of get them. But you would have to think where Columbus is. And, the thing about the East and the parity we talked about, everybody probably thinks that they're in it. And to a sense, maybe they are, but there's a lot of teams that Columbus would have to jump over to put themselves in contention when teams seems to be winning every single night in the Eastern Conference. So Columbus will be a team that, teams will look at as, probable sellers when we get to the trade deadline.
Was that Charlie Coyle?
It was. He was saying, how did you not know I was in Columbus?
I was in Columbus. You fooled us all, Charlie. Good player. I get why it makes sense. You're going to have to make that cap number work. And I think to make that cap number work, you're going to have to trade somebody off that roster.
Yep.
So just keep that in mind. I'm fine with all of that, by the way. If Julian feels like there is somebody out there that makes sense and you've got to deal somebody on this current roster, I am okay with that 100%. He's done more good than bad when it comes to trades. Yeah. Plus, I just think they're in a unique position to do that,
Well, and the one thing to think there, too, is it just popped in my head as we're talking.
It's dangerous.
It is. It's a lot. Trust me.
Does Bjorkstrand go back to Columbus?
Say his cap is 5.25.
Yeah.
Just saying.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. I don't know if that's what Columbus wants in return.
Lightning Power Lunch decided to throw out this theory that. No. Hey, if you want to make us go viral, just give us a like, retweet the show. We'll be here all day. Alan says, Greg and Eric, you were earlier talking analytics. How much of an analytics guy is John Cooper? I would think the way he coaches analytics is a very minor thing to him. Am I correct in my assessment? You may know that more than me.
Yeah, I wouldn't say minor, but he's not fully. He doesn't use analytics to make all his decisions.
Yeah.
Right? It's a piece of the puzzle, and I think a lot of coaches will tell you that. It's a piece of the puzzle that they use to determine where guys might fit or how guys are playing to assess it, right? But that's not what because to his point there, John Cooper is as much of a feel guy as he is analytics. And I think certainly in game, like this is an interesting scenario. I know some coaches will rely on analytics within games, right? They're all tied in with the headsets to somebody eye in the sky, and in this case it's Franz John who watches the game from above for the Lightning, so they're tied in with the bench, but like some guys will use that analytics and say, well, this guy's face-off percentage has been this against this guy, and our determination, our AI says that he's your best fit for this face-off. I don't get the sense John Cooper works that way. I think he goes off of the eye test, what he sees and what he feels within a game. I think after the game, when you're assessing things, when you're trying to determine how a player played in the game, I think you take what you see on live, I think you take what you see on tape, and I think you take what you see on the numbers after the game and put that all together to paint a more broader picture of what's going on. I know certainly Julian tracks a lot of the analytics, especially team-wise. I mean, he gives us those numbers quite a bit when we speak to him. He believes in them. They certainly have a pretty big analytic department, that their job is to just crunch these numbers and, put their algorithms together. And they just provide that information to the coaching staff and to the GM so that they can make maybe better informed decisions about things. But I think in-game, I think John Cooper is more of a gut feel kind of guy, and I think when he puts lines together, I think he's also more of a gut feel kind of guy.
Makes a lot of sense. You know where that answer, asking that question maybe is a little bit more interesting? Is there a player over the years who's taken up a roster spot that was in line more on the metrics than the production? In other words, they just really liked his zone time. They felt like he kept the puck in the other team's zone. Maybe didn't see the production per se, but man, offensive zone time, our numbers indicate that this guy and his line, when they played, they really tilted the ice. Things you can't see production-wise, but the metrics backed it up more.
You know who would fit into that category?
Tell me.
Last year especially was Zemgus Girgensons.
It's a good one.
The offensive numbers weren't there, but I guarantee you look at his advanced metrics, they were pretty good. And the eye test would have told you, too, that he's doing a lot of little things that you need in his role to help contribute to the team.
Yeah.
Right?
That's fair.
That was the one thing. Like, that line last year, and Luke Glendening was on that line. Those two were primarily on the fourth line. Like, they didn't score a lot, and, you would like to see some production out of those guys. But comparatively speaking, their plus and minus numbers weren't that bad for a line that wasn't scoring.
Yeah.
Right. So that's even a basic number that you can look at and say, okay, they're not scoring, but guess what? They're not getting scored on a lot. Right. So they're if you're not putting up goals, you could be a minus 20. Right. Because you're not balancing it out with what you're giving up compared to what you're providing. Right. So I think a guy like Girgensons would fit into that certainly last year because the offensive numbers weren't there, but I think the metrics were.
That's a good point by you, Erik Erlendsson. Tonight, enjoy some Refrum, smooth, versatile, and now pouring at Benchmark International Arena. Order a Tropical Wave or a Lightning Mule. And taste why fans are switching. Refrum is a premium craft Florida local rum built on authenticity, quality, and easy drinkability. Ask for Refrum by name. Go Bolts. Please enjoy responsibly. Let's get to a few more. And Colin says, I've watched most of the games this season, and I can't recall a game where Vasi looked as confident and poised in the net. He made it look easy, which causes opponents to try to be too precise. Doesn't Chief always talk about that, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when guys get in your head. Goalies can get in your head, and you try and be fine with it. I understand where that thought comes from because Vasilevsky was so good last night. He was so good. I think he's been that way most of the year. I think it's been a slow build, right? He missed a lot of training camp. Wasn't even practicing during training camp, didn't get a lot of preseason time in, so he kind of had to build his game up, to where he was comfortable. But I think he's kind of been in that mode for a while, right? I just think you haven't seen it as much or it hasn't stood out as much is because the team hasn't had to rely on him as much, right? Like, they had to rely on him a little bit last night. There were some breakdowns for sure. In regulation and certainly in the overtime. So I think it stood out a little bit more because of how much they had to rely on him. Like you even think about like Johansson. I bring this game up a lot, but the game in Washington where Johansson was outstanding when the team in front of him wasn't. Right? So Johansson stood out because you had to rely on him. I think because of the way that they've defended and they're not giving up some of the high danger chances and they're protecting the puck so you're not facing a lot of breakaways and odd man rushes, I think it doesn't stand out as much. But I would say that Vasilevsky, he's not going to be the same player he was at 24, 25, 26 years old. He's learned to kind of adapt his game a little bit to his newfound the way his body works nowadays. But I think the confidence has always been there, and I think before Andrei Vasilevsky steps on the ice, he's already in guys' heads.
That's fair. This is a fun one from Phil. Greg, the NFL teams use oxygen on the sidelines in Denver. Is it allowed in the NHL? And if it is, why don't they bring oxygen? Thank you. You know, I never thought of it. Never thought of it.
I'm pretty sure it is. Pretty sure it's allowed. I'm pretty sure I've seen it before.
Have you seen players with oxygen on the bench?
I think so. I think like we just don't catch it as much because of like in the NFL, there's cameras everywhere, right?
Yeah.
So everybody's looking at everything that's taking place on the sideline. In hockey, not so much.
Yeah.
Right. There's not cameras that are just fixated on the bench, and but I mean I could be wrong. Wouldn't be the first time, but I think it is allowed, and I think some teams do use it, just because of the nature of the 45-second shifts might feel like a minute and a half in Denver, right? Because of you're just a little more oxygen deprived than you are in other places. So I think it is allowed, and I think some teams do use it, even if necessarily we haven't seen it. And maybe it's just in the locker room after, because you have those quick little ones, like the canisters.
Yeah.
Right? It's not like you have to have the big 10-pound of
tanks.
Oxygen that we see. Yeah.
Well, and the players, too, there's some just built completely different in the NFL than they are in the NHL. I mean, you have 350-pound linemen who they need oxygen if they're not playing in Denver, particularly if your quarterback's throwing interceptions and you're running the other way.
Yeah.
That
is a good point by you. Yeah.
Thank you. I wanted you to say it again, so it was on the record. Rick says the Pittsburgh announcer said Hagel put himself in a bad spot. He really did. Absolutely nuts is what Rick says on that.
It's a Pittsburgh announcer trying to protect his team. That's all that is. It's because we know, and this is always my litmus test for plays like that. If that was your player, do you feel the same way? Yeah. And I bet the Pittsburgh announcer does not.
Fair point. Let's get to one more. Donna has a question. Geeky needed to be a two-way player. He has the turning circle of a bus. Has this improved at the crunch? How about Donna?
Turning circle of a bus. That's a good one. I haven't heard that one before.
I have not watched him in Syracuse. I could not tell you if his defensive play has improved. Only the reports that we get from people who are following that.
Yep.
Was that the biggest reason he was sent down? I think it was just he needed to play. So if you want to include that in he needed to play, was that he needed to be better defensively for sure, then yeah, I'm on board with that. I think this is more about where does he fit when he comes up here than anything else.
You saw the benefits of him playing down in Syracuse last year.
Yeah.
Right, when he was called back up. He was a different player. His confidence was different and everything else. So I think that's the hope here is that confidence build. And, I mean, the offensive numbers are there. I saw he stood up for a teammate the other day and got into a fight. He's been a force on the power play. The thing about playing better defensively, the American Hockey League is a much different league than the National Hockey League, right? There's more structure in everything up here. So there are elements that you can be better at defensively that you can learn in the AHL for sure, but it is a different game. So we won't know if that has paid dividends until he gets some extended looks back up here, which will come. They'll come, right? He's just 21 years old. He's in year 2 of his entry-level contract. He'll get his shot here again, and he'll be a big part. What we anticipate will be a big part moving forward, also depending on what the trade deadline brings. But that's a conversation for another day.
It is, and we'll have those conversations a lot more as the season progresses, I am sure. A great 2 days filling in for Mish, and been texting Mish back and forth. All went well, so we are
good,
very very grateful for that, and Mish should be back doing his thing with me tomorrow. We've got the game on Friday. Make sure you check out E's work, lightninginsider.com. Of course, also you can listen to them on our broadcasts as well. But this has been a lot of fun, bud. I expect a full report on lightninginsider.com about how great it was to work with me. And I'll send you a good headshot. And we'll go there.
Yeah. The headline will not read great points by Linnelli made on Lightning Power Lunch.
How Lightning announcer made great points. And it would be blank. There would be nothing in there. There would be nothing in there. That would actually
space.
be. There would be that'd be great. Just pictures. All right. Good stuff, bud. We'll continue reading the work, and we appreciate you hopping on.
Yep. As always, a lot of fun, and I'll talk to you on Friday.
You got it. Erik Erlendsson there. Thanks to Steve Ersnick, Jared Johnson for putting it all together, and for you listening to our show for an hour. We appreciate it. You've been listening to Power Lunch. I'm Greg Linnelli on Lightning Radio.